Okay, we'll try this again. We're recording now. That's good.
Okay.
Sorry about this. We just tried to record this, and the internet just went on me altogether. Dude, thank you very much for this. Can I ask you a question before we start? Why have I been calling you Jarlath for a long time? Because that's not your name, is it?
My name is my name is Iarla. The Anglicization is Jarlath.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that. Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
interesting. I've been.
yeah. It's a funny name actually. In Sweden, it's Jarl. Yeah, in England it'd be Jarlath. In Ireland, Iarla.
I thought Jarlath was an Irish name. Actually, that's interesting. I've been here 22 years now. I didn't know that. Wow, you learn.
It is Irish, as in like it was an Anglicization of an Irish name, so it was never an English name as far as I know.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, Ialra O'Riada, thank you very much. Because you did change your name. I remember on Facebook it was Jarlath for a while, and then that changed, and I was like, oh, I'm a right knob. I've been calling him the wrong name all this time.
No, you're
But
right. You're right.
thank
Yeah.
you very much. You're the fellow behind Amiga Ireland. You're a busy man. It looks like you're running that Facebook group, and then there's a podcast, and then you have an event happening every year, which I ended up going to this year, finally, after of me cancelling and saying I'll go, and I'm kind of like that. I'm so disorganized when it comes to things like that. But thank you very much. How did that start, the Amiga Ireland? It started as a group, didn't it?
It did, yeah. It just started. Thanks for having me on, by the way.
No
It
worries.
just started as an online group. Been given an Amiga as a present by my wife. I'd been buying a few box games, a few Commodore 64 cassettes and things, and I just wanted to put them on the shelf. But after a while, then I started emulating, and then I wanted a machine, and there's something missing, So even though I've got the machine and the games and everything, there's something missing. So I realized it was kind of the people aspect. So you set up a few different groups online. There was one on what's the one you pay for? I can't remember what it's called now. Meetup.com.
Okay.
Ran one of those for a while, but Facebook became the more central one. Facebook and Twitter are where most people follow these days.
Yeah, it's so convenient. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it
that
is.
started as a group. I just picked up. I have so many questions already on what you just said. So you didn't have an Amiga when you were a kid, or did you, or was that a?
I did.
Okay.
I did. I had a 600. Yeah, I got the Wild, the Weird, and the Wicked pack. But it came to a very sad demise at my own hands.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I basically just took it apart to see what was in there, and it was pretty simple. So I started, taking it apart even further and taking things off the motherboard that shouldn't be taken off. And,
Oops.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that happened. When you're a kid, you just think you can put things back together. I've done that to so many toys as well. Just I want to know how it works, but in the process, you destroy the thing because it's yeah.
I know.
But
Yeah.
that's so your wife bought you an Amiga back, and then the love came back, was it?
It did. Yeah. Yeah. In both ways, I loved her more, and I loved me more.
Yeah, I was well, not a similar thing, but it's just after all these years, I remember my mother coming to visit in Ireland, and she said, I found this box. They drove over, so she brought a box of things, and in it was my old Amiga 500 that I sort of forgotten by then. That was before all this retro stuff became popular, and I was just there looking at my old Amiga, going, I wonder if it still works. So I plugged it in, and next thing I was playing Turrican like 20 years later. It's
Oh
just
my
so
God.
cool. Yeah, I still have that machine. It's still there. Yeah, it's funny. It just all came all rushing back, and then it sort of kick-started all this interest in everything retro and everything back to my childhood. I looked for my old. I said, "Did you find the MSX?" I had an old MSX. So I said, "Can you look for the MSX?" You found it as well. So that was just so cool. Yeah, started the channel and all that kind of stuff. That's really interesting. So it's just a present that sort of kick-started this whole thing for you then.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely it, yeah. And the kind of realization, geez, some of the best memories are actually like shared memories around the Amiga as opposed to just, on my own playing games and stuff like that.
That's so true,
Yeah.
and especially for computers, for vintage computers, because there was a community aspect even back then. I mean, consoles was something you did in your room on your own or with a couple of friends, but the computer stuff back then was just very, very. It was community based already. You know, there's the demo scenes and all that kind of stuff. Large
Yeah.
meetup. That was the beginning of the LAN parties and all that kind of stuff. And it's nice going to the event to find that atmosphere back. It does have elements of that old style of just gathering. When did you decide to set up an event like that, and why? Because
Um, that's a good question. Well, I just wanted to get as many people together. I guess I thought that, there must be hundreds of people, at least in Ireland, who really enjoyed their Amigas, or their Commodore machines or whatever, and they're out there, and like myself, had no clue that there's loads of people out there
yeah,
active already, and there's still hardware and all that. So the plan of the online thing was to sort of try and find those people. I even ran ads at one point on Facebook,
I know.
to try and find people in the demographic who might. And then I think the goal is always to get people together, though. The goal is to kind of get offline eventually, even though, we'll never actually be offline.
Sure,
We'll
yeah.
always be. But the end goal is always to get people face to face.
That's it. Yeah, that's really cool. But like I said, it's a nice just throwback to then when that's what you did. You just met, brought your Amiga, brought your computer, showed played a few games, showed a few
Yeah.
demos, and that's what I liked about the meetup the first time I came. Was that the first time the first time ever, the first time I came over? That was
That
around.
one you came to, I can't remember, was that the first or the second one? I think it was the second one you came to, where we had the full room opened out.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The
Okay.
first year we only had half the space the first time.
No, that was a very small space. It wasn't the entire room.
Oh,
The
you were
first
at the
time it would have been
first.
the first one then, but it
Okay.
was very much like that. It was just really cool. It was just a bunch of friends just bringing their computer and going, "This is what I'm running on mine, and this is what he's running on his," and it was that kind of stuff. It was
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
really heaps of fun. And sorry, I haven't been to the other ones. I really am just been too lazy, and I did buy the tickets though, but I just didn't show up.
That's right. That's right. I remember that. Yeah. I actually have some badges done up with your names on them that were never collected. So,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I meant to give them to you this year, actually. I've at least one anyway. Yeah, but
So this year was
yeah,
there
they
was
were
quite a
fun,
good.
and they were more fun than I even expected them to be.
Yeah, there was quite a good turn up as well, and a lot of stuff going on. How? Sorry, no, go ahead.
Yeah, there's just been some good, nice, happy accidents and surprises and stuff. I mean, getting David Presence to do an interview with us on the projector that first time was
Yes,
incredible,
yeah,
and that kind of kick-started then the opening up kind of what people were into, what people would like to see, which really is everything, bit of
yeah,
everything. Which is nice. I didn't want it to be. I was hoping it wouldn't like it's a democratic thing. Like we survey people to see what do people want to happen, and so I was hoping it wouldn't ever end up too much one thing and not another. But it's kind of like an Amiga magazine or something come to life. There's a section on gaming. There's a section on music
yeah,
making. There's some interviews and workshops, and it's great. I love it that way. Yeah.
yeah, and I was very surprised actually when I was there because you mentioned there was in Ireland there must be a couple of hundred people that at least who've had an Amiga, but there was actually very few people from Ireland. There was a lot of people from England. There seems to be a lot of Polish folks or German and Eastern European in general. Somebody came from
Yeah,
America.
that's right. Yeah,
It's
yeah. John
wow,
Schaller from
that's
America.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a gang from Norway. There was some from Sweden as well. Yeah, and I'm missing out. There was someone from Austria, I think. Yeah, it's incredible. There are more people from overseas now than from Ireland at the event, which
Yeah,
is yeah, it's incredible. I never thought that would happen. I think the people who kickstarted that were Darren Glenn and yeah, Darren and Paul Kitching. I think they came over one year with Ravi Abbott. And when I heard they were coming, I remember having a slight panic, thinking, "Geez, this isn't anything special at all. Like, it's not like the bigger events. Like, so I hope they're not disappointed." But no, it's been great.
I think people like the fact that it's smaller scale, even though it was quite the biggest this year. But it's one big room with a lot of people crammed in. But it's got that nice scale where you can actually get to talk to everybody and get to see everything. and you go back a few times, you feel like you can spend your time just looking at one machine. You're not missing out on so much, else. It's got a nice size, but are you tempted to expand, like open a second room or that kind of stuff? How big would you like it to get?
I personally have no motivation like to make it bigger. It's not like, there's no goal like necessarily making it big. As long as the people who are there actually want to be there, that's the main thing,
Yeah.
and are happy and enjoy it and stuff like that. Like we are, like the next one is going to be in a bigger venue next door to the venue we were in last year. So the new venue is the Sheraton Hotel, and that's basically due to popular demand. We couldn't really afford to have an increase in numbers again in 2020 being the same space. We'd never fit. So yeah, so I sent a survey out to see how people felt, and I'd heard anyway from chatting to people in the pub, how a lot of people felt, but just to make sure it was kind of, to get the numbers right and gauge it properly,
Yeah.
we did a survey, and the number one request above anything else by a mile is get a bigger venue. So next year's space is going to be 3 to 4 times the size.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a very nice room they have there. It's 3 rooms with partitions pulled away. So on the Friday, it'll all be opened up, and it'll be the usual kind of more lighthearted stuff, a bit of fun, a bit of banter, and a few interviews, and there'll be a new gaming thing that will probably never have happened at any event before. We're going to have if we can get it working.
Okay.
And then on the Saturday, we'll partition away one of those thirds for the workshops, because the people who are really into the workshops, they want to concentrate a bit more. They want to spend the day, dabbling and working on it and asking the lecturers, and then come back out to our area whenever they want to break and stuff. So that looks like the way it's going to go for 2020.
Interesting. And is it just Amiga? There was a couple of Commodores there as well, I noticed this year.
There's always room for a couple of Commodores.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's good. I was never a Commodore guy, a C64 guy. I didn't have one back then, but I discovered it fairly recently, 10 years ago. Actually, more than that, sorry. An English friend of mine had one that I would visit in summer, so I did get to play a few games, but as a machine, I didn't own it, but I'm in love with the machine. It's actually such a neat, handy little thing. Even more so, I would say, than my MSX. I still love my MSX. I prefer my MSX to anything else, but I have to say, the Commodore 64, it's such a cool machine. Really fun.
It has a charm to it. There's something that I can't put my finger on.
It has a charm, even if you didn't have one back then, and you get one now. It has that charm. That sort of nostalgic charm, which I find, I was like, oh yes, it's, I don't know, I was reminiscing of stuff I never experienced. Sort of. It was really, really funny. Yeah. I have one. I was giving a breadboard machine a while back, and that wasn't working, so I got it back working. I'm pretty happy with that.
It's funny, I was watching Fortress there just a couple of months back, and your man was like the guy in the control room up top. I forget the actor's name. He was the dad in that 70s show. He's a well-known American actor, but he typed in a few controls on the armrest of his chair. There was this keypad, and the keys were made up of Commodore 64 keys, which arranged awesome. Into this thing. Recognized it straight away.
It's everywhere. Yeah, there's references to it everywhere. It's so cool. You'd think the Amstrad or other stuff like that would also have that feeling, but not so much. The Commodore 64 definitely has that. Yeah, there's something about it. I mean, I love it. So it's cool. Yeah, it's 3 times the size of the last venue. That's
3 or 4 times. Yeah.
Are you stressed about it, or I mean, do you freak out when you see how big it gets so quickly? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't need to. We don't need to grow as in numbers for people, but we'll have more space at least.
Sure.
And if more, vendors and stuff want to come, there'll be room for them. So it'll be nice that way.
For presentations and quick tutorials and interview, that might be handy, because you can have a dedicated space for it.
Yeah.
That doesn't interfere on, because people want to still play a few games, but there was an interview going, so you want to be quiet and that kind of stuff. That sort of makes sense.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I've been toying again with. I haven't done that in so long, but with assembler on the Z80 especially.
Oh,
but
wow.
I want to get back into the 6800, so maybe I should put a small intro tutorial presentation for you next year or something like that. That could be interesting.
That'd be cool.
Shouldn't be too hard to do. Yeah, maybe if I have something ready by then. But you know
The
me.
number one request, right, for workshops, I do a survey around December, I think it is, every year, to see what kind of workshops people prefer to see. And the top of the list, to my surprise anyway, is always programming.
Yeah. Because it's funny. There's been so many. There's so much available online for programming, but people want to know that Amiga, that machine. Like, how did you make that game or those games? You know, there's something about it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
and the demos, even like there's one called Copper Master, I think, that I was watching there at the event last time, and like to just even get assembly and play with a specific part of the machine, even like a certain part of the graphics, like the copper, like even that alone, like personally, I'd really enjoy just picking out one little piece and spending time with that. It's not like I have any ambitions to be write a game or anything, but
make a scroller text or something like that. Yeah.
exactly, yeah.
That's what I was able to do back then. Make a quick scroller text and make it bounce
Wow, that's a
sometimes.
lot.
But yeah, that was already a lot. I mean, especially when you're a teenager, you know, you don't really fully understand the hardware. So assembler is so tied to the hardware. If you don't understand one, you're gonna have a problem with the other. But you kind of, I don't know how I managed to pick all that up. But I've forgotten a lot of it. So I was just very eager recently to get back into it. Especially with all my stuff of fixing boards and all that, it does help.
Of course, yeah. You know the hardware well already, sure, yeah.
Yeah, no, but
Yeah.
better anyway than I did. Well, I'm always very impressed because I've zero organizational skills. I mean, you probably know that by the time so many times I told you I'd go to the event and I haven't. But so I'm always impressed when somebody can put something like that. Is it a lot of work? Like I assume it's a yearly thing.
Yeah, it's more work than I expected, that's for sure.
I don't like how much you're laughing about this.
It was, I thought, a 2-day event once a year, because like most people I know now who are into the Amiga, they're busy, they've got jobs, families, kids, and so like meeting once a year really is kind of the limit. Maybe twice a year,
Yeah.
but once works well because other people who are overseas and stuff know when to come, and but yeah, it's quite a bit of work. And every year I think, okay, I've got to pin down now. Next year is going to be really, really easy. But there's quite a bit, especially if you want to add something new every year.
Yeah.
And sometimes it could be the most stupid thing that takes up all your time. Like this year, making those Zool masks took like an insane amount of time. It was crazy. Yeah.
It's really cool. I think you're doing it right because you started very small and it's nice to see it expand. Like there's been a few attempts at conventions and things like that in Ireland, but they seem to be just too big, too early. And inevitably you just hear disaster stories of just lack of organization and too much people just not knowing where to go or that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah, we did start small and we try and base it on what people want really, and let people know. Now, if we get a certain size, we'll have to change something
of course. Yeah.
so that people know, because it, like in the beginning, you could just talk to everybody easily. You didn't even need a microphone the first time.
Yeah.
This year, it was bigger, and we had a timetable of everything, but there were so many people there. Some people didn't even see it because the room was so crowded. So
course,
like
yeah.
next time we need to have it on a projector on the screen so everyone knows what's happening and when. And yeah.
Yeah, I did my best to have that. I made a small edit video. I did my best to have that, all this stuff and the competition and all that kind of stuff on it. But yeah, it's always somebody talking in front of it. Yeah, it's just the way it was. It's a popular event in a small room.
That was a really good video, by the way. It was really
That was
excellent.
fun to do, like putting the Amiga style text scrollers and that kind of stuff on it.
That was brilliant. Yeah, and the bouncing ball in the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, little touches, but I'm glad I got you in it because there was sort of telling there's Iarla just running from one place to the other, and
That
that's
was brilliant. Yeah, the
all the
Lara was
time.
amazing. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, that's way beyond my abilities of video editing.
yeah. Anyway, that's really cool. I'm delighted the event is going well. I'm delighted I went back again this year, and I'll definitely go back next year. I'm looking forward to the bigger venue then. And curious, yeah. But I'm very surprised that not more people from Ireland actually have gone to it, because there's a huge community. Like there's the boards.ie forum, and there's a few
Mm.
Facebook groups and that kind of stuff. And somehow it hasn't quite attracted. There's a few people from that forum that I met there, but I think there's only three of us, and I know there's a lot more Amiga fans around. People I know personally as
There
well.
are, and most of them. I'm surprised too that we didn't get more people from Ireland sooner. But what I'm finding is that most people, my age anyway, they're not really online much. You know, they don't really do much social media.
True.
And they find out through word of mouth. And when they do find out, they're like, "Geez, this has been going on for years, and I didn't even know." And I've an Amiga in my attic, and you know, like we opened up a credit union account there, and the woman behind the desk, she's like, "Amiga Ireland." She said, "It was Amiga a computer?" She
Oh
goes, "Geez,
my God.
my brother has one of those out in the shed. Like, you know, I must tell him about you. Like, you know." So we'll get there, but
Yeah.
it
Well,
mightn't be through the traditional means, you know.
yeah, first don't well, yes, tell him about it, but second, don't leave that Amiga in the shed.
I know, God, like, oh.
Oh wow. Yeah, it's well, I suppose yeah, you're probably right. It's the age group, but there is a forum, and I know there's people interested. I told my neighbor I actually came here one day, and he saw all the stuff, and he saw the Amiga 500 and said, "Oh, I've a ton of stuff from the Amiga. You welcome to have it." And I thought he had couple of floppies or something like that, and he showed up with two suitcases with an Amiga
Wow.
600. There was an Atari 600 XL or something like that, and then just full of cards and games and that kind of stuff. I said, "Here." I was like, "Are you serious?"
Jesus,
It's my
that's
neighbor
amazing.
there. Like I see him every day, but he had that for years. I didn't know. He didn't know, and I was just sitting there. I'm glad he kept them. But yeah, so I got quite a boost in my Amiga collection that day, and an Amiga
That's
600.
amazing.
Yeah, that was really cool. His uncle was an engineer. He worked at that Tipperary factory where they were making the Atari games.
Ah, yeah.
So he was getting a lot of stuff from that because they had deals to get computers. All the Atari stuff came from there. But I'd love to talk to the grandfather, the uncle as well, because he was a he was a repair engineer. He'd go on location to fix some games, and the last game he worked on, which I didn't know at the time, but I know now, but was a Sega Outrun, and it's
Oh,
obviously not
wow.
an Atari game, but Atari on the later days would lease the assembly lines to other companies like Namco or Sega to make their games. So there's a lot of Sega stuff that came
Ah,
from Ireland. That'd be
interesting.
such an interesting man to talk to. I'd love to hear stories from the from the assembly lines.
Yeah, hands-on experience. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be cool. But yeah. So there's, I mean, a lot of people who had the Amiga and remember the Amiga. Yeah, it'd be cool to get more people. Maybe if it grows bigger, and yeah, I'll do my best to promote it as well a bit more.
Great,
Um,
thanks a million. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, every time, like at the end of every year, what usually happens, right, is people first of all hear that they realize they've just missed the Amiga Ireland event, and they say, "I'm definitely coming next year." Then they come for the Saturday just to see what it's like, and then the next year they say, "I'm coming for both days next year, the Friday and the Saturday." So that seems to be the onboarding process.
That's the other thing. Like it goes over a few days as well. It starts on it's unofficially on the Friday evening, and goes on until the Sunday, really.
Yeah, the official start is 1 o'clock on Friday lunchtime. So
Oh wow, okay.
it does involve taking a half day off work or a full day if you're traveling. And then officially it ends like late on Saturday night in the pub. But yeah, we meet up on Sunday as well, Sunday morning.
Uh, yeah, like that. Oops, hold on, my screen went. Oh, don't know what happened. Sorry. We'll probably edit that afterwards. Yeah, 3 days. That's. I mean, it does make sense for people who come over from abroad. I suppose just coming for one day, and because they would be staying anyway, sort of makes sense to have that over a few days. And it's nice. It
Yeah,
it
yeah,
allows. Sorry. Yeah. No, go ahead.
that's okay. Sorry, I was clearing my throat at the same time as I was thinking about talking. Yeah, after talking to people who've been to go to a lot of events, like you know, the thing is that with Sundays is that they can end on a bit of a whimper, and the main thing is I want to like to finish the event on a bang, not a whimper. So that's why it's Saturday night is the official end.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay.
Everybody's there together. You know, we get our group photo together, and it's just a lovely memory rather than you know kind of a ghost town on Sunday morning, and then people slowly disappear one by one.
Yeah.
But the unofficial gathering, though, for breakfast and stuff like that, means we can still meet up without it looking like the ashes of the event.
I got you. Yeah, that makes sense. Instead of having everybody, sort of drip out of the room on the Sunday until you have 3 people there who won't leave. That's really cool.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
I say that every year as well, but I should make more of those paintings to bring. Maybe have a stand next time. I've been working on more Amiga stuff lately that I haven't shown anywhere. So
good. I still have your Cthulhu one on my desk. I absolutely love it.
Damn, I do miss that one actually. I'm sorry I sold it.
Jeez.
I have this that I'm making at the moment. You'll probably like it, but it's
let me see.
It was from Speedball 2.
Oh wow, yeah, I knew I recognized that. Cool.
Yeah, I'm making a few from the Amiga, so maybe if I still have them next year, I have this as well.
Oh wow.
Anyway,
Jeez, that's amazing.
But I'll bring them over if I
deadly
can
too.
bring
Oh
myself
yeah,
to
yeah.
make a few. Yeah. But you also when I say you're a busy man, you also host the podcast, the Amiga Ireland podcast.
That's right. That's one of the other methods of finding people to let them know the event is on.
And you invited me to that a while back. Thank you very much. That was heaps of fun. It's a nice podcast. Is that still going? I mean, it's pretty regular, or is it when you have the time?
There's one part we do regularly, like clockwork, and it's the first Thursday of every month we release podcast.
Okay.
Then we were doing a fairly regular interview slot between those. So another podcast is where we catch up on news and talk about what's happening, events, games, music, stuff like that. The interviews then were happening in between, but we all have kids now, and so they're very rare now that we do an interview.
Yeah.
But we do have 2 lined up to come out very shortly. Yeah.
It is hard setting up a proper interview. It depends. I mean, you can be as casual as you want, like this. I don't prepare anything for these. I just chat to people. But yours, you like to have a set list of questions and know a bit about the person before you have them on. So it does take a lot of time. I mean, I know a few friends that run a podcast like that, and it's a lot of preparation, a lot more than people realize.
It is, and it doesn't always pay. Like sometimes the casual approach actually pays off better, because it's kind of more natural. You get to hear the actual person rather than their answers, and so I suppose there's a line somewhere maybe.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to do it in this format here, because it's just people sort of relaxed when they see I actually don't have a list of questions and I'm just not listening to the answer but trying to get to the next question. Some people prefer that approach as well, and it's just and for me as well, it's just nice to chat and take the time to discuss something, so you don't have to jump from one topic to the other. You can stay on something as long as you want. And it doesn't matter if you haven't talked about, sorry, there's my phone. If you haven't, stuff like that, unprepared, but if you haven't got to the next question you wanted to or stuff, it's just at least you spent the right time talking about a topic you wanted to talk about. It's I prefer that format myself, but I mean, different people prefer different stuff. I do realize that I remember doing a couple of interviews and people actually got mad at me that I didn't research it. I think it was David Wise. He's a composer, and mad at me that I didn't have a list of questions and didn't research what he'd done before and that kind of stuff. But I was like, no, the point was we talk,
and they might have been interviewed in a way already. Like a lot of people you can talk to, they've been interviewed to death.
Exactly, yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's all that information is there pretty much already. So what's not there is chatting to the person and having a few blunders and chatting. I want to talk to Chris Hulsbeck. He's going to some trouble recently, so that's probably off. But we sort of agreed unofficially to do one of those. But I said I don't want to talk about, or not too much about music or video games, but I wanted to talk about what he's doing now, which is going around in his RV. We'll see how things develop. Yeah, he's had some trouble recently, so. But that'd be cool. I'd love to hear his views on some of the characters he meets and some of the places he's been to, because he sold everything and just went on his RV. and
Oh wow.
just going around. He's composing from there as well, and yeah, it's just nuts. It's cool. It's really cool. I won't talk to him
Yeah.
about that. Nobody's asking him about that.
Exactly. Yeah.
But how do you find the podcasting then? Is it rewarding? Is it interesting?
It is. It's rewarding, interesting, and time consuming.
Yeah,
Like there's two real goals of the podcast. One is to obviously let people know we're there, and the other one is to like unearth people in the Amiga community that you wouldn't necessarily know about. Um, who I think could do with being more in the spotlight or the foreground. Which I don't know if our podcast is the best place for them to get that exposure, but that's the idea behind it anyway.
yeah.
Um, it's a fair chunk of work organizing it, editing it, because there are three of us. We need to coordinate ourselves a bit. So yeah, I mean, it's what I would love to do ideally is get to a point where we just record the whole thing live and cut it and send it off, warts and all. Who knows? Maybe we'll get there.
So you have two other people doing it with you?
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
Luke and Rob.
yeah,
Yeah, and they're vital to the
yeah.
podcast. I'm like the cheerleader. It's like, come on, let's do it. Like, let's record a podcast. But like, okay, guys, do you know about the hardware? Do you know about the? Could you help with this and that?
Yeah, I was gonna say they each have little areas where they can fill in, and it's actually it works really well. It's sort of complementary like that. Yeah, and you're orchestrating the whole thing in the background.
Yeah.
But it's really
Typical.
yeah, it's a fun podcast. Encourage everybody to go in and listen to it because it's enjoyable, especially if you like Amiga stuff, obviously. But even if you don't, it might be a way to discover other people. You'd miss Madeleine on it as well.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. She was in it one time.
that's
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty much how I discovered her channel.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's funny. Like yeah, like you said, it's people you haven't heard about, and suddenly they're
yeah.
everywhere in my feed now.
Fantastic. Yeah, her channel is very good. I really enjoy the hardware stuff. Um,
Yeah,
well, the variety, I suppose.
yeah, and
Uh,
she came to the meetup, the Amiga meetup one year, didn't she?
She did, yeah. Her first
Oh,
time was last year. Was the 2018 event, and she couldn't make it this time around. But I hope we see her again. Yeah.
that'd be cool. So, any goals, any long term goals? Make this bigger, better.
Make it better, not necessarily bigger though. I mean, if people buy tickets, we'll fit them in.
Yeah, of
That's why
course.
we're gone bigger now. We had 99 was the head count this year, and we've enough space for 200 people next year easily if we want it. And a comfortable 200, not like a squashed
Yeah,
200. Uh, yeah, I mean, we're covered for whatever comes our way in January. We're covered, but I'd like to just make it that there's so many different kinds of Amiga fans. For some, like some say to me, look, I'm purely into the games, and that's
yeah,
that's it. Like, which is perfect. And then for the people, it's about other aspects. So I suppose to accommodate everybody, infringing on somebody else, uh, like this year, if we had an interview, for example, on the mics, then I don't know, does that infringe on something else? Well, there wouldn't have been a workshop happening, say, at that time, and
yeah,
vice
yeah.
versa. So the new venue is going to let us like dedicate time to people, and the main challenge is to do that without then segregating people. Because, well, personally, my favorite aspect, and I think from the survey and the feedback, the favorite aspect to most people is the kind of togetherness, and everybody's lumped in together. So if we go sending people off to different rooms to do things, I think that's gonna, I don't think that's going to be as good.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I like what you said though, and that's true of most retro computers. Something you wouldn't have in console is that the interest was more than just games. And in the case of the Amiga, you'd have music, you'd have programming, you'd have maybe rendering 3D stuff, or playing with tools like that, or pixel art,
Yeah.
or what's called pixel art, but yeah, paint using or just demos. I mean, there was a guy I remember I think it was the first year, a Polish guy, who he had a repair workshop and he was selling bits and that kind of stuff. But he had no interest in the games. He just used the Amiga for demos. That's all he wanted to run on his Amiga was demos. And I like that. I like the fact that you can have so many interests with one machine. Like it's really, really cool.
It is, and I'm just rediscovering it because for me it was all the games growing up really, and unlike the Commodore 64, the Amiga didn't really come with like much encouragement to program on it. The
Yeah.
Commodore 64 came with books with code that you could type in, but now to meet people who are purely into hardware and software, all kinds of things is cool. And actually, Eddie Carroll, I didn't even know Eddie Carroll was based in Ireland or Irish or anything like that until it was Luke actually, or Rob, Luke and Rob on the podcast told me about him. So I didn't realize Snoop Sauce originated in Dublin.
Oh wow.
Um, so like meeting guys like that and finding them here is really cool. Like,
Did you have much of a community when you were younger? Had you a few friends that had the Amiga or?
there were I think there were two main communities. The one I was in was basically the one that was, whoever's in your street and in your school, and swap it the weekend. I'll give you my Street Fighter 2 if you give me your Speedball or whatever. Like
Yeah.
until Monday morning, that kind of stuff. There was an online community I've learned about later, like the Commodore User Group Ireland, the Coogie guys, which I never knew about because by the time I got online, I didn't have an Amiga anymore.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I missed that, but good opportunity to learn anyway and find out about what was going on there. And some of those guys are actually there this year, which was really cool.
So had you many friends that had an Amiga? Is what I mean back then. Like,
Yeah, a fair few, or else wanted an Amiga. Like the 500 was really common already. 64,
Yeah.
And then eventually I was able to trade up, and it was a 600 I got for Christmas that year. And at first I was gutted because it looked like a sort of a stump of an Amiga 500.
People don't like the 600. Yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah, but and I read all the comments online where people said they didn't like it, at least before the Vampires came out. But when my friends with the 500 saw it, they thought it was really cool because they liked that it was more compact, and they liked that the joystick ports are on the side instead of the back.
Oh yeah.
So their initial reaction. So once they thought it was really cool, then I was really happy. 600 after that.
It is tidy. I really like it. I like the aspect ratio of it. Because when you compare it to a 500 or the 5 Plus, it looks a beast now. But something about the 500, because that's the one everybody most likely had at the time. Yeah. But I have the 600 here. I put a GoTech in it, and it's so tidy. Yeah. Especially nowadays when the desk real estate is at a premium and you have so many stuff. It's nice to have something that's a bit more compact. But I found it was last year in France. What we do when we go to France, we bring the van because we do a lot of camping, but we also go to the flea markets and the car boot sales and that kind of stuff. And I found an old 500 Plus there.
Wow.
Just rusting away. So the first thing I did is I went to the van, I got a screwdriver, and I took out the battery because that had leaked already, but I haven't done anything to it. It's still there, but at least the battery's off there. So I'll see if I can revive it. Yeah, it's cool.
And was that part of a bundle, or was it on its own? Was it in a box? Like
it was just there. There was I don't know, CD racks and an Amiga 500, a tin whistle. Random stuff. You find at car boot sales and. But there was an Amiga 500, a 500 Plus. So it's cool. I'm just missing the 1200 and every other Amiga. There was quite a few made as well. That's fascinating. Have you any interest on the bigger Amigas than the whatever they were called the?
I do, in a sense that like I'm big into the applications. Like I find the software applications really interesting. Software applications, the apps that are really fascinating, the graphics, the desktop, the productivity things, the databases, all that stuff, they really interest me. So the big box Amigas and those applications kind of went hand in hand, I think, with the the American magazines, the American market, whereas in Europe it seems to be it was the more budget wedge machines, which I love, and the games. So I don't know if I would ever. The thing is, like, the boxes. There's something about the wedge, though, just really.
I know, right? The home computer. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and like, even though I was listening to Madam in there, just yesterday on one of her videos, she was doing a CU magazine flip through, and she was saying like some people had said to her, "You should towerize your Amiga," and that she would never do that. Like, I could never.
Yeah.
No matter how nice the machine is, really. Like, I'd put an NG Amiga to a tower, absolutely, but the old ones, I need to keep them in a wedge.
I know, because then it's a PC, really. What you have is just a You know,
That's
PC
exactly it.
type, or yeah, no, yeah, the towers.
Yeah.
I have no interest in the tower, Amiga tower. I
Like they were
liked.
powerful. Like the 4000 was great, like for power, and the 3000. A lot of people would say the 3000 was the best Amiga machine to come out. It was just the casing itself and stuff. And these days you can accelerate your Amigas in other ways. So
Exactly. I was gonna say if power is what you want, then well, maybe don't use an Amiga.
no,
But you know what
true.
I mean. It's where does it stop? You know how much power you need. Emulate it
Yeah,
then in that case, and just put an Amiga sticker on your PC. But which some people have done. I mean, there's absolutely perfect emulation. There was somebody with a Pi as well. That's all he had. He had a keyboard and a Pi, playing the Amiga games on that. I was like, it's not cheating. It's cool though. It's really cool to see. Um, but yeah,
yeah.
I like I like the home computer version. Yeah, the wedges. I've very little interest in the CD. Um, what's it called?
The
CD
32 is it?
32. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't care much for that. I do like a keyboard. I need a keyboard.
Same here. It was always drilled into me from a kid. If you want a computer in the house, it has to have a keyboard. You're not just getting a games machine. So they were always off the shelf anyway from the beginning.
Yeah.
Um, so it's probably something to do with that. Like the CD32 is good for in a museum in Galway. We have one hooked up to the projector there, pretty much permanently. And it's nice if people come in and we get a bigger crowd than we're expecting. We can just plug two controllers into that. And Iraq in the States has, Eric Hogan, I think is his name, has created a few nice, CDs with 50 or 100 games or
Ah,
whatever
yeah,
on it.
yeah,
So they're handy for that. But for day to day, I need to sit at the actual, like yourself, the keyboard
yeah. Exactly.
machine.
What's the museum you mentioned? What's the museum you mentioned there? You mentioned
Yeah, so the Computer and Communications Museum of Ireland has, they cover all ranges of kind of early, what would be called early technology. There's ink and quill. There's some kind of basic hieroglyphics there, and then it goes up to radio equipment, and you can send and receive Morse code in their equipment in there. They have
wow.
the Enigma machine there actually, um, at the moment, but it was there for quite a while. And then they have other vintage, like more modern radio stuff and computers all through the ages, from early calculators. I think they have Sinclair calculators, and then a lot of Commodore stuff. So the founder of that was a big Commodore enthusiast,
Wow.
and he has passed away now, unfortunately. Chris Coughlin, and so but he was big into. He put a lot of his life and soul into that museum himself, Brendan Smith and some of the other founders. But it's based in Galway, so we meet up there on the first Friday of every month, and you can just shoot us an email to make sure the space. It's not the biggest museum you've ever seen.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, interesting. I didn't know there was one. Where's that based in Galway or?
So yeah, there's a nice big Commodore section there. We've
Oh, we
sorry.
must. Yeah, no, we must have some delay. It's all right. Yeah. Where in Galway is it based?
It's in the IDA business estate. It's actually on the NUI campus, but
Ah,
on the IDA side there, out near where the Westwood Hotel was. Yeah.
interesting. It's good to hear actually. Is there an equivalent in Dublin, or is it the only one in Ireland?
That's a good question. This is the national one.
Okay.
I don't know what there is for Commodore machines in Dublin. And in those terms, I have asked, but I've asked people in Dublin if they're aware of anything, but I haven't gotten an answer.
It's really cool. Um, I think we've been chatting there for about 45 minutes, probably more essentially because we have a bit of a mishap and a restart and the internet went and a couple of more things. But I don't want to take too much of your time as well. But I want to say a big thank you. I'm glad we did this. I'm glad we took the time to chat about sort of everything and nothing really, but about the Amiga meetup as well. That's what I wanted to promote as well. Thank you very much, Jude, for your time. Have you anything to plug? Have you anything to say, or you know?
Let me see. Well, thanks again for the invitation, and thanks
No
for the
problem.
video and like the efforts. Like so many people have kind of made efforts one way or the other to try and promote the event. It's really really cool. Yeah, the video is absolutely deadly. Let me see. I'll say a few things real quickly. One is that the tickets are going to go on sale soon for next year's event.
Already? Wow.
Yeah. And there is a special ticket for the VIP dinner on Friday night, and there's only about 50 of those, so book early. Then we're also going to announce a very special guest, a very interesting guest that we've been trying to get our hands on, who we're going to fly in this time. So this is going to be a new extra kind of feature for Amiga
Nice.
Ireland that we haven't had before.
Is it is it a mystery guest? So
Yeah, you could call it a mystery guest. And
Okay.
what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pop up some kind of puzzle, maybe a crossword or something on the website, an Amiga-based crossword.
a riddle.
Yeah, that you can find out who it is that way.
Really cool.
And that's basically all I've got to say. Yeah, but thanks. And yeah, I really enjoy your music. By the way, I have a ton of them on my phone here. They're fantastic.
No, thank you, and thank you. I know you support the channel. Yeah, thank you very much. And I'll have more Amiga stuff very soon. Actually, I'm planning an Amiga month for April. So, because Amiga, yeah, that's my kind of riddle. So yeah, I'll have more Turrican, and I'll have some Shadow the Beast and other stuff.
Great. Yeah, you've pulled out some ones like the Guile level. I never really listened to that music when I was playing Street Fighter 2, and it wasn't really till I listened to your cover of it. I was, oh yeah, I do remember that track actually.
Yeah.
Did you remember the Guile level? I wouldn't have thought of it. But
No, you
yeah.
don't. It's Street Fighter 2 is it's one of those soundtracks that you don't necessarily know by heart, but when you hear it, you go, I know that, because you don't really pay attention to the music at all. You know,
Yeah.
you remember obviously the graphics, but the music you don't pay attention until you hear it and you go, oh, I remember that. Is that? Oh, that must be Street Fighter. Oh yeah, that's this level as well.
Yeah.
The level with the elephants, like you don't actually know the music, but if you heard it, you'd remember it straight away, and you know exactly what it is. So yeah. Anyway, thank you very much. Thanks for your time, and
Pleasure.
I'll see you again at the next year's Amiga Ireland. We should have said it's in January.
It's in
that it takes
January.
place,
Yeah, in Athlone.
in Athlone, yeah. That's actually very handy because it's central and everybody in Ireland should be able to make it.
That's the
Says
idea.
I, after not going for so many years. Dude, thank you very much, and we'll talk soon.
Take
Folks,
care.
thank you for listening. Bye-bye. Let's stop recording.